All right, everybody, welcome to the trenches. I'm Sam Mays. This is the Alamo Bowl post game. The Oklahoma Sooners fall 38-24 to the Arizona Wildcats in a game that we were hoping to see probably just a little bit more as the Sooners are headed to the SEC next year. A lot of hype surrounding Jackson Arnold's first start. He throws a few interceptions in this game, and it just didn't necessarily give you that feel-good feeling going into this offseason. But we're going to talk a lot about it today on the show. We'll take some of your questions and comments too. And so thank you so much for joining me. Real quick, I've got to thank a couple of sponsors of mine, Euros Men's Health. They've been absolutely incredible to me over the last couple of months, really supporting me as I've gone through having some heart issues and had COVID and, having a teammate essentially that's on your side, helping you deal with some of your medical issues is incredible, right? They're helping me with my vitamins, helping me with all, manage my medicines, help me counteract some of the side effects that I'm taking for some of my medication for my heart, which is great. I mean, it really is truly like having a teammate that's on your side that you can communicate through your patient portal. They answer you quickly. You're not waiting on a doctor to call you back. I'm a huge fan of Euros Health. If you haven't checked them out, make sure you go to the website and do that. And big thank you to Lock Supply for supporting the podcast. I really appreciate those guys. They've been really on my team for the last 10 years, ever since I was on radio, and they showed up for me in a big way, and looking forward to doing a ton of work with them here over the next couple of years. So big thank you to Lock Supply for sponsoring this podcast also. Like I said, Sooners fell 38-24. Jackson, here's the reality of the situation is this. Let me just let you know what the stat lines look like. If I didn't tell you the score and told you that Oklahoma had 562 yards of offense, 361 through the air, 201 on the ground, even with the turnovers, right? Even with the 4 turnovers, or not 4 turnovers, excuse me. Even with the interceptions and the fumbles, this game doesn't look. It looks like the Sooners should have found a way to win it, right? But the reality is, you turned the ball over as much as they did. Is that right? Was it really 3 fumbles lost in this game? Good night. So 6 total turnovers in this game. That's the story, right? That's just the reality of it. I think I probably try to forget a couple of those throughout the course of the 4 quarters. But what did we see? What are the let's talk about the good things that we saw. I'll say this about Jackson Arnold. The arm, good Lord, is there. That kid has got an absolute cannon of a right arm, and he absolutely is going to be somebody that I think is able to do some special things in college football. I'm not going to judge anybody from their very first start. In my very first start, I gave up 3 tackles for a loss and a couple of sacks in a game, and I was devastated by it. By far my worst performance I'd ever had in my career, and it took a lot for me to bounce back from that mentally, and ended up having an All-American career. Like, it's your very first start. That's a young man out there trying to figure it out, and he's got the backs of the Oklahoma Sooners, the Oklahoma Sooners on his back. One of the most boisterous and incredible fan bases in all of college football. And they want results, and they want them now, and they want to see, contending football. And I get that. I do. I 100% understand the pressure of competing on a blue blood football team. That's just the reality of the situation. You got to give the kid a break. There's no reason to get on the internet and say he's not the guy, or he's not going to be able to accomplish anything, or he was a disappointment today. This is his very first start. New guys out there calling the offense, even though he's familiar with the Littrell and those guys. Still, it's not Jeff Levy, who he loved calling the plays, and he's just trying to figure some things out. Your offensive line, I thought, was average in the majority of the season this year. They were average and sometimes below average in this game. The holding penalties, putting him behind the 8 ball several times. You're talking about the number of sacks that he took. Some were his own fault, some weren't. I think he was just under duress. But even through some of those things, we saw him throw the ball accurately. Nice deep ball. Has several different pitches he can throw. That kid is, and obviously the athleticism shown. It's easy to see as he takes off and runs down the field. He's an active runner. This is not somebody who's out there. He's more, Jalen Hurts than he is Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield was a good runner and somebody that was able to extend plays, but I never looked at Baker and thought he had any, running back ability. This kid has got some true speed, and he's able to really take off down the field and impact the game in the run game. So, I don't know if you guys can let me pull this over here. So I'm pretty impressed. I think with Jackson Arnold and the canvas that he is. Now they just got to paint the picture, right? And I think it's going to be one of those things where it's going to take a little time, but he will get it figured out. He's going to get it figured out. I know the sense of urgency is very much there right now because of the situation that Oklahoma is in. You go to the SEC your very first year. You want to be able to get in that league and put your foot down immediately and stand up and beat your chest and say, we are the Oklahoma Sooners. We're one of the perennial powerhouses in college football, and we're here, to compete for championships. Maybe I think that time will come, but I think you need to understand what the issues that are on your football team are right now. Like young quarterback, offensive line issues. I thought the defensive line for Oklahoma today played very, very well. You're talking about, I think they had, what Arizona have on the ground, 29 total rushing yards. That's insane. I thought that group up front for Oklahoma played very well in the front seven. Linebackers played well. Defensively, I think they got a little tuckered out just because they were on the field so much in the second half of that game. But I don't know that it's at least in the front seven that you can complain a lot. Now, I think the secondary gave up some big plays. I think it's also very difficult to play in the secondary when you're playing with a quarterback that can extend plays like Arizona's did. I thought he went out there and competed pretty well over the course of 4 quarters. Also, Arizona's a good football team. I think Venables said that several times during the season this year. So it's it's one of those things that I mean, you lost a football game to a relatively good team, a team that's probably going to show up and be the front runner to win the Big 12 next year. So John says, great O-line play by the Sooners tonight. Not great O-line play by the Sooners. They were struggling. I saw a lot of people talking about how DG is better than Jackson Arnold, and Dylan Gabriel is better than Jackson Arnold. I don't know why anybody would think any different than that. I mean, Dylan Gabriel was the better quarterback. He left for a reason, though. I mean, the reality of the situation is they needed him to probably head on his way so they can get Arnold in the game. And you don't have these kids as long as you'd like to have them these days. And with the transfer portal looming, I mean, Arnold's not waiting around to start building his resume, all right, start becoming the player that we all think he can become. I mean, this was the next step the Oklahoma Sooners needed to take. And, Dylan Gabriel, thankfully, because the transfer portal was able to cash in and go to a team he's going to be able to compete for a championship next year. So I think that it's a scenario that just needed to happen. I don't think anybody out there, if you're out there saying that you think that Jackson Arnold was a better quarterback than Dylan Gabriel, you've lost your mind. Can Jackson Arnold do a little bit more? And as far as deep balls are concerned and maybe his arm strength is concerned, yeah, I believe that. But as far as the knowledge that Gabriel's had over the years, I mean, there's no comparison to having a veteran quarterback and a freshman out there. I mean, that's not even close. Told you JA ain't ready. Hopefully he will be by next fall. If not, it will be a long, nasty season. He'll go into his true sophomore year. He had his first start in the bowl game. These bowl practices as a starter are invaluable. This spring being the signal caller is invaluable. He's got the whole fall camp. I mean, he will be better mentally next fall. There's no question about that. And I guarantee that's going to happen he'll be the starting quarterback. There's no quarterback controversy in Norman this spring. There's no pressure behind him. All he's going to do is work on his trade. I think the biggest issue that Oklahoma has going into next season is what is that offensive line going to look like? And if they can't protect him, well, then, yeah, a true sophomore quarterback is going to have a hard time behind a porous offensive line. That, to me, is the only it's the biggest concern on the team next year is, will Oklahoma be able to block anybody in the SEC? And you want to talk about leveling. I mean, they had hard times blocking people in the Big 12 this year. The SEC, it's not the same thing. That's an entirely different animal, entirely different body type. There's a reason why they have the most draft picks in the league every single year. I mean, the SEC is a different animal in regards to pass rushers, guys in the middle. You're talking 350 pounds, something you're going to see on the regular as a defensive tackle, nose guard type player in that league. So if they can't block, Oklahoma won't win. I'm just telling you. I don't care who Jackson Arnold is as a player. I don't care how big his arm is. I don't care how many stars he has behind his name. That kid could have the greatest offseason ever. But if they can't block, they can't win. Period. That's it. So Bill Bedenbaugh, I respect that man more than most coaches in college football. I love the way he approaches the game. He's got the hardest job on the football team next season, getting that offensive line up to speed, bunch of new faces, most likely no returning starters. I mean, it is going to be an interesting offseason for those guys. He's got a ton of work to do, and that will be the focus of this entire spring. So I mean, that's it. I'm not going to put next season's success or failure solely on the quarterback. I mean, there's too many issues with this football team moving forward to say that that's where we need to go. Stephen G. Sam, coming into a bowl game with new OC, brand new O-line combo, and brand new QB, it honestly could have been way worse. I mean, I picked Arizona to win this game by a few points. I didn't know that they would score as many as they did, but I also thought that Oklahoma was probably going to be able to stay on the field a little bit longer. I was surprised to see them not run the football or trust the offensive line more in the run game. If they would have done that a little earlier, stuck with it a little earlier, I think the result probably would have been a little different. I think they put a lot of pressure on the Oklahoma defense, and they gave up another touchdown. I think I said 31-28 was my final score, and what was it, 38-24? So yeah, I was surprised to see them get up to 38. But like I said, Arizona's not a bad football team by any means, and I think Venables recognized that over the last couple of weeks watching film, and he even said it in the post game or in a press conference that this could be one of the best teams we played against all season long. I thought they went out there, and Arizona made mistakes. They weren't perfect by any means, but they did. You got a veteran quarterback, and there's some more stability on that football team, and they're doing the same things they did all season long offensively. I mean, it just makes sense that they would show up probably a little more prepared than the Sooners did. So could it have been worse? Probably. I think it probably could have been worse. Stephen G. Have to see how Beambo and BV handles things in portal, mostly among O-line. Yeah, like if they're not, it will blow me away if they don't go all in on procuring some offensive line in the portal. Like it's the only way they're going to have a chance next season. Like I'll just say that. Like they have to go out there and get some dudes that can come in and play immediately, guys that have bodies that are ready for big time college football. It's unusual to get true freshmen on the offensive line that are able to come in and compete physically in this game. Like it takes us a year, to one. I probably lost 30 pounds of baby fat and from my freshman year and put on about 15, 20 pounds of muscle. My entire body changed from the time I was a redshirt freshman to a redshirt sophomore. Like those guys typically need a year to get ready. So, if you're looking to true freshmen to come in and save the day on your offensive line, most of the time that's not going to happen. Now, I did play with a incredible true freshman. Corey Hilliard was a true freshman right tackle that was big, physical, had the footwork, very, very coachable. One of those diamonds in the rough. He was ended up being, I think Corey was a freshman All-American his first year at Oklahoma State. Those guys just don't come along too often as far as ready to go right now. So, yeah, I think the focal point needs to be bolstering that offensive line and figure out who you can get in there to compete immediately, be physically ready to compete in the SEC. Let's see. You guys are really moving this thing along. Peyton Dobrinsky, 4 or 5 L's next fall. At least lots of SEC towns are cool to visit. Or 4 or 5 losses a possibility? Sure. I mean, I think that schedule is it's all there. It is. There's no doubt about that. And if they don't bolster that offensive line, figure out what they're going to do in the middle of that defensive front. Yeah, I mean, it could be a rough road. I mean, I think anybody denying that is delusional. I mean, you're getting ready to take a whole different level up in regards to the overall physicality of the league that you're playing in. And it could be tough. It could be real tough. DeWitt was not all on JA. Why would the coach have him throw 45 times in his first game? I thought that was a little crazy also. I really did. I mean, 45 times for a true freshman. Let's look at the positive. The positive is they think the kid has got the ability right now to go win a football game, and they put a lot of pressure on him to do that in this game. If he didn't show them some things in practice, they wouldn't have done that, right? Negative is, after he throws the first couple of picks, make an adjustment, but maybe lean on your offensive line a little bit more and hope that you can get that run game going. Probably try to stabilize and speed up the game a little bit. I mean, that's what I would have done. Now, at the same time, maybe they just don't trust that offensive line to do that. And if that's the case, they're looking towards a quarterback like, hey, save us, because we just don't think the offensive line can block as well as they need to. At the same time, they had 201 yards of rushing. I mean, I think they could have definitely gone to the run earlier in this game and maybe helped them out quite a bit. I thought that was a coaching mistake. There is some undisciplined football today for sure. Those holding penalties are ridiculous. Um, I agree with that. They definitely could have been more disciplined. Let's see. Can OU hold their own in the SEC with their current line play on both sides of the ball? The answer is no. No, they can't. And obviously I've covered Oklahoma now since 2011. I think when the Sooners are winning, it's just great for the state. I've covered two Heisman Trophy winners, Heisman runner-up, 4 semifinal games. I've been all over the country chasing this team, watching them do great things. I want to see them have success. So me sitting here telling you that I don't think that next year is going to be great is not something that I want to be saying, right? I don't. I mean, I think that is the last thing that you want. And I'm a college football purist. I love this game. I love the sport. I grew up in the state of Ohio, chasing a blue blood team of my own in the Ohio State Buckeyes. I appreciate the pageantry of it, the history of it. I think it makes it special. What's killing it though is NIL, transfer portal. These young men that are playing the game today, they don't care about any of that stuff, right? And so my biggest concern would be, it took Nebraska almost 10 years to get in the hole that they're in right now. It took Texas, a long time to get into the hole that they finally dug themselves out of. I don't think Oklahoma's got the time, right? I don't think this current landscape of football will allow you to go in and have a 6-win, let's say a couple of 6-win seasons, and you survive that with the same amount of respect you have on that brand right now. And it just sucks because these kids just don't see the value in it, right? They want to know what you're going to do for them. They want to know how much money you got. They're not looking at that Oklahoma brand and unless you're from the state, right? That's the thing that kills Oklahoma. As much as I love Oklahoma high school football, you're talking about 20 kids that are good enough to play for the Sooners every year potentially. If you are in Ohio or Texas, at one point Urban Meyer said when he was coaching at Ohio State that he reserved over 60% of his roster for Ohio kids. Like, imagine if Oklahoma could do that, right? Then the tune changes because those kids that are from the state, they believe in the brand. Like they grow up wanting to be Sooners. They will grow up wanting to play on Owen Field. It's in their blood. It's in their family. Like that is just different when you have that ability. The Sooners don't have that ability to recruit in state. So now the out of state kids don't give a damn. And it truly sucks. I came to the Big 12 20 years ago, not because of Oklahoma State. I came because of OU. I came because of Texas. I came because of Nebraska. I came because of A&M. I came because this league was the best conference in college football. And I wanted to be a part of the history of this conference. I wanted to be a part of that greatness that was here, playing those stadiums. That is in 2023, 24. That's not even a conversation these kids were having anymore, right? So my biggest concern is OU goes into the SEC next year with the inability to protect themselves on either side of the line of scrimmage, right? And then all of a sudden they have a couple of rough years and then the narrative changes completely about the program. Like, that's the risk here, that brand doesn't carry you as far as it used to. So it could be a mess. Jackson held on to the ball a little long at times, causing some holds, getting O-line short up, and I think they will. Fingers crossed, they'll be okay. Yeah, he definitely. The kid's got some moxie, doesn't he? I mean, he'll sit in there, set his feet, and look down that field. He's looking to throw that football. I mean, I'll give him some credit there. I'd rather have a horse that's holding on to it a little long in the backfield than one that's skittish and just throwing it to his first read every single time. I mean, that kid he's figuring it out. Like there's some signs of real greatness in Jackson Arnold's game. He's a tough, hard-nosed kid. He took some hits today that rattled my teeth watching it on television. So, I mean, I'll give him some credit. He's a tough kid, and some of those mistakes that we saw today, they won't be there here, in a year. I mean, he'll get better. I mean, this is what true freshmen look like. I mean, Oklahoma has been the benefit of guys transferring in and, just great quarterback play for, it seems like 10 years now. And I think we're all probably just a little spoiled with how some of that has gone for the Sooners. But this kid he's got it. I think he's a special player. Sorry about that. I still got a little of that COVID cough going on. Trevor J, we could become a meme. I hope not. Yeah, 6 turnovers in the game and they're still close. It's nuts. Absolutely. As a former player, how hard is it to go from one OC position coach to another? So this actually happened to me. Mike Jacobs was my offensive line coach as a true freshman, and Chuck Mueller came in when I was a redshirt sophomore. And yeah, it's not that bad of a transition, to be completely honest. If the terminology stays the same, right? Like, and that's what's going to happen with the Sooners. You're having the same conversation, same calls on the offensive line, same calls, protections, and things like that. As long as you're not flipping up that stuff, the transition is pretty easy. So I don't think it's going to be difficult as far as an academic side of things at all. How much leniency do you think BV will get? 2 years of disappointing endings to seasons. I'm a Brent Venables believer. I love the faith, family, football narrative. I love the soul mission. I love everything that he's talking about with the Sooners and what he's bringing to the table. The problem is, I wonder, he is the standard of what we should want for these young men playing the game. The rest of the country, though, is in a cesspool and they're wallowing around in it, right? And I don't know that the good guy can win in this scenario. Like I'd struggle with that. Like I don't know that the good guy can win in today's college football landscape. It's gross, and Venables is trying to stay above it. And I love him for it, but I just don't know if that mindset is going to be what it takes to be great, to win games, to get talent, to recruit better. Like I don't know. Like so as far as what his leash looks like, I mean, he going into this league next year, he's probably got a couple of years, maybe a year. If it's a complete disaster next year, maybe they look to go somewhere else. Who knows? But he's just, I mean, I wish he would have been a head coach 20 years ago. He would have been fine. I think he does all the right things, and his kids love him for more than one reason. I think he is an excellent teacher, but I think he loves those kids. He reminds me of Barry Switzer in the way that he just loves those kids and he wants to see them succeed on and off the field. You just don't get coaches like that today. I watch coaches have press conferences and you just know you don't give a damn about those kids. They don't care. They're making all this money and go win games, and no matter who, they don't care who's doing it for them as long as they're doing it. I think Venables is just he's a great man. I think he's out there doing it for the right reasons. So I don't know, man. I hope that he can find a way because I just don't think he'll have a very long leash. Do you think legit football players who push you over the edge to compete care about soul mission, etc.? No, I don't. And I don't think their families do either, which sucks. I really don't. Jackson and the receivers will get timing down in the offseason. Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. 10-3 in year 2 of the rebuild is still good. I mean, yes, 10-3 that record is, but I mean, let's talk about. Did you watch Oklahoma State yesterday? I mean, that was the Big 12 runner-up. It's not a good football team. It's not. Right? Kansas is not a good football team. Like Oklahoma needs, they should have. I picked them to beat Oklahoma State by double digits, and they lost that game. Like they should have never done it. So if you're going to be hard on them, it's disappointing, right? Because they should have beat both Kansas and Oklahoma State. Josh McCall, WTF was that? Had a month to damn near prepare. I mean, 6 turnovers, bro. It's tough. 6 turnovers is tough. It's hard to overcome. They had 562 yards of offense. I mean, that's a hell of a day. I think the defense got tuckered out at the end. They were on the field too long. Turnovers just killed them. JA is good, and watch you eat them. That kid is talented. Jackson Arnold is going to be a great player. He really is. It just comes down to what they can put in front of him. If they can put an offensive line in front of that kid, the sky's the limit. He is special. Got a special skill set. Anybody out there ripping Jackson Arnold for this game needs to settle the hell down. Seriously. Defense has been much improved, but there's still something missing. What do you think the key is to getting this defense consistent and stout? An offense that can stay in the damn field. Oklahoma think, I don't want to be called a liar here, but if you go look at the number of snaps that Oklahoma defense took this year, I want to say it was almost 2 games more than any team in the Big 12. Like they took a bunch of snaps. And as much as Levy's offense could score and put up big numbers at times, the reality is it's not the offense that you need to have a good defense. Like you got to have a symbiotic relationship. Those two have got to work together. And I think the more that they can stay on the field offensively, the more that they can work on a run game offensively, the better this team will be. I mean, that's just the reality of it, right? I mean, they got to find a way to just stay on the football field longer offensively, and because they're just killing their defense in regards to the amount of players that they're playing every single game. They just didn't have the depth for it. If OU had SEC depth, maybe we'd be having a different conversation, but you're talking about 25, 30 kids that are difference makers for the Oklahoma defense, versus Alabama's got 40 kids that they're putting out there and getting meaningful snaps in a game, and Oklahoma's probably has, 30 is probably on the high side for OU. You're probably talking really more like 20 kids that are able to get in there and them not feel like they're liabilities, maybe even less than that. So it's a tough place to be when your offense doesn't work with the defense. I was pretty impressed with the Randy Dalton. The SEC will run the ball down this crap defense's throat. I mean, I think the defense, they held Arizona to 29 yards rushing. I mean, I don't think we can complain about their rush defense by any means. Eric, Sam, do you think 3 passes on the first series was right choice? No, I don't think it was the right choice, but I also can admire the confidence they had in the quarterback, right? That's a good sign. Like they went out there and tried to whip it around early. I mean, that makes me believe that they think that kid has got the possible capability of doing those things, which he does. I think he absolutely does. Um, so, yeah, I would say I wouldn't have gone that way, but I get it. All right, guys, I'm gonna get on out of here. I appreciate it so much. You guys have been awesome all season long. Make sure you keep tuning into the Sam Mays podcast. We will, or into the trenches with Sam Mays, excuse me. We will absolutely keep doing this. I'll probably have a couple of pods every single week. I'll do some recaps of the season next week for both Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. College football is a 365-day a year conversation now, which is awesome. So there's always going to be a ton to talk about, but I really appreciate the support. Follow me on all the social medias. Hit that subscribe button if you don't mind. It helps me out so much when you guys do that. Hit the like button. I love that stuff, and it just makes my life a whole lot easier. So I really appreciate you guys joining me. Appreciate the conversation. You guys are great. And get some rest tonight and have a happy new year. Don't do anything crazy or do anything that I wouldn't do. Thanks, guys.